Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Write your favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Let's get started. What is the most foolish error you have ever witnessed a coworker with incompetence make? For a beachfront project where there had to be round-the-clock site patrol, I oversaw a construction security team. My friend handled the graveyard shift and I oversaw the day team. As it was a dredging operation, we had to have 2 guys posted near the shore to make sure civilians weren't running into the area. So think of a square on the beach with a guard on each corner. One night, however, we were unable to locate one of our night watchmen and his phone was leaving voicemails. Turns out that at 2 a.m, he had placed a folding chair in the sand, dozed off at post, and washed away an hour later by high tide. He returned home drenched without telling anyone, and his phone and everything in his pockets were ruined. He didn't need to be reprimanded, in my opinion, because the humiliation was probably sufficient penalty. After driving a company ATV off a sandbank and getting it stuck, he was subsequently fired. While I was a college undergraduate, I worked for a delivery company. I took the fallout for 2 things: choosing the incorrect printer paper, pre-punched holes versus no punch holes, and failing to fill the gas tank when it was almost empty. Since the boxes were the exact same color, I accepted responsibility for the printer paper. However, I was informed that there were yellow stickers that read 3-hole punch. Where? I inquired. Upon glancing at them, they exclaimed, "Wait, there are none." I added that, as this was in 1997, I had been instructed never to fill the delivery truck until it was more than halfway empty, due to the wastefulness of it. I saw that happen twice and immediately filled it up, putting my truck's number on it and signing off on the pump as instructed. Since someone hadn't been doing their job, they gave me some space on the boxes. They put the blame on me, though, because I didn't make many trips and didn't waste gas or supplies between the 3 hours I left for class and the next deliveries, which were made at the end of the day before classes started at night, yet blamed me for failing to consider what transpires during those 3 hours. The following week, I was fired, and barely 2 days later, they discovered the problems had persisted. The truck was so close to E that it had stopped in the parking lot almost empty. The yellow stickers were absent from those identical boxes. I discovered that the son of one of the assistant managers was using the truck for emergency deliveries because supplies were running low at different locations on campus, and they hadn't recorded the use of the vehicle. It was even more foolish that you needed to sign out the truck's keys. Someone simply said that the man took the keys, exclaimed "hey," and then resumed his activity before letting him go. The same young person who was told to make sure you don't run out of boxes was working on a shelf where the stickers were located. Thus, he simply left them there without ever opening them. Following a nightly inventory check, the night stock person would say, "Oh, guess we don't need to print any, there are full shelves." I didn't realize that the inventory had been the same for nearly 2 months and none of them had been moved until I was charged with damaging the boxes that had missing their stickers. They concluded it was my fault after looking at my shift and seeing that I had correctly signed out of everything once everything came to a head. Upon realizing that the former student manager during the end of their day shift had been filling up the truck at night and checking anything that was out of order, he was a real above and beyond guy who performed more work than he was paid to. They fired the assistant manager and, of course, the son. He ended up leaving for another job. As a result, when this occurred, the manager's child had no more justification for hiding the S he was doing, and I was forced to take the blame. Before cell phones, I had a job as a security guard. Sometimes it was my job to just stop by sites without warning to check them out. When I get to the bank around 1 a.m., it's in a pretty sketchy part of town and the bars have just closed for the night. People could get into the bank from 2 different sides. I went to the back and rang the buzzer. I look through the glass doors again after a few minutes and can just barely make out the security desk. That's not him. I can see the radio and flashlight on the counter, so he should be there. I knew I could get in through a side door, so I did that. I planned to wait at the desk until he came back. I find my way down a few hallways and into the security office through the back door. I open the door, take a look around, and then go through the other door to find the guard. He is sound asleep with his head on the desk. First, I take a quick look at him. Then I go back to the office to get an extra radio and press the mic a few times. He wakes up, turns his head to the left and right, puts it back down, and goes back to sleep when his radio starts to play. I go back to the security office, shut the door, and call my boss to let them know I'm there for an inspection and the guard is sound asleep. I was told to get him up, send him home, and work the rest of his shift. When I talk to him, I get the sense that he usually sleeps and doesn't know why this is a bad idea. I show him the computer screen, which has flashing red letters from the door I opened to get in. I also tell him that whenever the door was opened, the computer would also let him know that a door that shouldn't have been opened was. Oh, I took the speaker off. There are always false alarms. Okay, good night. I watched the security camera videotape again. He came in at 11 p.m. and took over as guard. He made his rounds at 11:15 p.m. and was fast asleep by midnight. I watched tapes from about a month ago and saw that he did the same thing every night he worked. He would get up around 6 a.m., go to the bathroom, take a short walk around the bank, and finish the few early morning tasks that needed to be done before his shift ended. Writes everything down and sends it by fax. In the late afternoon, he was fired after our manager read what I wrote and listened to the tapes himself. He argued with the manager that nothing I reported was actually important and that I was just out to get him. I used to work at a tech repair shop. I'm not sure what to call it, but we fixed computers, printers, laptops, and other similar devices. No televisions, not that it matters. 3 older guys ran this place, and one of their nephews was employed there as well. The dudes were pretty chill most of the time, and one of them was really cool, like all the time. But the nephew was a complete idiot. Even though I was younger than he was, they trusted me far more, even though he was a close relative and had been there for a number of years. The nephew was tasked with properly testing the printer, so the chill dude asked him 10 times if he had done so when he had to deliver it to a company that was about 2 hours away by car one day. The nephew said he did just 5 minutes ago and that it worked. Of course, he did not test it, and it did not work when he hooked it up at the company. Needless to say, the chill dude went ballistic on him. He was fired shortly after that due to numerous similar mistakes he had made. He just needed to test the effing printer. It was 5 minutes of work. What is the worst thing that a-hole neighbors or homeowners associations have done to you, Redditors? I own a home in a small community in Texas that is located on the water's edge. Due to the fact that we have been living there since the house was constructed in 1961, we've been able to avoid becoming members of the HOA. We had a wonderful family that lived next door to us, and they had 2 boys who were identical twins. They were fantastic in every way. After they left in 2003, the house remained unoccupied for a period of 1 year. The following year, in 2004, a retired couple and their 2 puppy dogs moved into the house. She was a nuisance from the very beginning. Within a week, she called both my father and me, and when we did not respond, she finally called the city because she did not like our oak tree. After being informed by the city that they would not take any action unless the tree was taken down, she ultimately decided to take the tree down herself. While we were out of town for a weekend, she poured gasoline all around the base of our tree. What I know is that she did this because her son, who is now an adult, told me about it while he was apologizing to me about her behavior at a party one night. She eventually became the HOA Führer, and during her tenure, the HOA made it illegal to leave lawn furniture out or uncovered on a patio overnight. Furthermore, the HOA outright prohibited the use of lawn furniture on wooden decks if it could be seen from the street. Due to the fact that our view is on the front side of the house, all of our patio furniture is arranged on the wooden wraparound deck that had been constructed in front of the house. We were informed in 10 certified letters that we were in violation of the rules of the HOA and that we would be subject to a weekly fine of $100 until we fixed the issue. The Homeowners Association does not have any authority over us, so we naturally discarded them. Of course, this peed her off even more, and when she tried to file HOA charges or sue whatever those tyrannical despots do, and was informed we were outside the law, she started calling the cops anytime we had company over for barbecues. As a result of the fact that I enjoy smoking meats, whenever I would ignite my smoker, she would immediately contact the fire department. As a result of the fact that we lived on a golf course, the city had a grass height ordinance that stated that the height of the grass could not exceed 7 inches on improved land and 10 inches on unimproved land. Except for 2 measuring strips 20 feet by 12 feet in the front and 1 in the back, our yard was almost entirely composed of rocks. It was her habit to come out and take the measurements of the grass, and then she would call the code enforcement to report us. Having lived there for so long and with all the renovations on our home, we were very friendly with the code enforcement and most times would just call in and tell us she was snooping around. In the vicinity of this time, she constructed a privacy fence along her property, which is prohibited by the city ordinance due to the presence of the golf course. I waited until the fence was constructed, and then, the next time she snooped on us about our grass, I casually mentioned it to code enforcement. They ordered her to take it down and fined her for her actions. When I rented the house to a friend of mine, and then about 6 months later, I ended up moving back in as well. Everything came to a head, and everything culminated in that moment. My new housemate and I threw parties almost every weekend for about a year, and she finally moved out. I met her son before she moved. He'd come over to the parties when he was in town, and he told me she thought our house was tacky and that if she forced us out, she could make sure the new owners fixed it up better. The new individuals who have moved in next door are a wonderful couple who appear to be very private. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that the sale will be finalized on the 11th and that I will never have to struggle with that house again. I have a lot of awful neighbors in our HOA. They're very passive, they don't do anything, and different stories to tell about each of them, but the worst one stole a 5-foot wide strip of my family's land, tried to claim an easement across our land to get water access, and are encroaching on our land with a staircase on the side entrance to their new house. They're also horrible people in general, and may have stolen our mushroom anchor. Our property line has been demarcated by an old post in the marsh, their property line by the end of the road. When their road was paved, it was extended farther onto their land than it had been when the road was just made of dirt, and we think they had some friends steal our post out of the marsh, as one day we woke up to find it missing. Then they recorded a deed to their property that claimed their boundary was 5 feet farther over than it was. My grandfather's health was beginning to decline. They hadn't been bad neighbors up until that point, and we still had an overabundance of land, so my grandparents decided to settle with them and have that be the end of it. Big mistake, it turns out. They take this as a sign of weakness and then try to file an easement on our property that would allow them to drive over our land and use the end of our road to launch boats from. This time, we don't roll over and successfully denied them the easement in court. Now they've taken advantage of the stolen land to build a big, ugly house way too close to ours, and if they put in the steps leading up to their side entrance, they will officially be encroaching on our property. The joke's on them on that count, though. I don't think they realize we can demand rent from them for the life of the house if they put those D stairs in. They're also just very spiteful people. They glare at us every time they see us, and I swear, I saw our old mushroom anchor in their yard when I was doing yard work a couple of weeks ago. We're hoping they sell and some nicer people move in. Update. They did decide to put the steps in, though. Idiots. I purposefully waited until they were done and then came to them with the threat of a lifetime rent. What a pleasure to watch them destroy it. Update 2. I consulted with a property rights attorney I know. We pulled up the deeds and, as it turned out, they don't have any documented right to the land they agreed to with their grandparents. So, basically, the house is on our land. We immediately went to court. This case took a lot of time, but we still won. They had to pay us a huge sum for the land plus legal fees. In the end, they sold the plot with the house and we never saw them again. The new owners plan to completely demolish that ugly house and build a new one at a normal distance from our plot. They are very nice people, even showed us the plan. I think we'll be friends. Thank you for listening to these stories. If you want to see new videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel and don't forget to hit the like button.